Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to another Amelie Moran podcast episode. Yes, I am extremely sunburnt. No, we're not going to talk about it. Let's get on with today's episode talking about Antigua, Guatemala. This was one of my favourite places that we travelled to. Think of volcano views, colonial streets, and rooftop bars. I want to share today what made Antigua the best backpacker destination. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, the dangerous, and the hilarious with being stranded. To me, Antigua felt like walking through a Wes Anderson movie, but with volcanoes. It's very, very laid back, but there's always something happening. There's markets, festivals, parades, big church services, and live music in the street. Now, let's take it back to Panajachel in Guatemala, the previous destination that we'd been in, and I had left that place with extreme bad food poisoning. This carried on into Antigua. I was not well on the drive to Antigua. I don't want to go into too much detail with it, but you get the picture. I explained how bad it was in the previous episode. Also, it's a very embarrassing time in my life that I have to say. It was not enjoyable at all. And I have never ever been travel sick before, and that was my first experience. So we can skip over that one. We arrived. We were in one piece. We were safe. It was fine. And I honestly could not have asked for a better place to settle, to be honest. Antigua is so beautiful. Our van, or our, I guess, bus, transport, whatever you want to call it, dropped us in the town square, which meant that we got to see the center of the town as soon as we arrived, which I loved so much. I do have to say that following on from being extremely ill, Antigua does have a lot of very westernized fast food places, and it actually ended up being a slight blessing in disguise because the food poisoning was not getting better in the first few days of being in Antigua, and it was actually only fast food that my stomach would be okay with, which sounds kind of strange. As soon as I'd been really ill on the way to Antigua, getting off that bus and finding a McDonald's was like a safe haven, and for some reason my stomach was completely fine with that food, even though it's not the healthiest or probably the best thing to eat. But to me, I guess the kind of thinking was, when I'm hungover, fast food is the best, and I've just been really ill, so let's see what happens. Seeing that center town as soon as you start your time in Antigua is one of the many reasons why Sam and I have said that we would go back. We absolutely loved staying in this city or town or whatever you want to call it. The views are absolutely stunning. The atmosphere itself is just extremely vibrant, very colorful, very, very happy, and also very, very relaxed. Antigua's backpacking community is also extremely fun to be around. I would say it's like a chaotic community, if that makes sense. Everybody's here for an adventure. You've got all the volcanoes surrounding the town. You have the volcano climb being one of the biggest attractions that people go to Antigua for. And I will get more into that later on in the episode, but that is just one of the main things that draws people, I think, to Antigua. It's one of the biggest attractions there. And what was really lovely from what we saw was the hostels have such a vibrant community, and you can meet all these people from different walks of life. I would say there's no boring times in a hostel in Antigua. We stayed in a hostel called Adra Hostel, which I do have to say was a bit more expensive than any hostel I think we stayed in for our entire trip. We also did share a room with, I think it was about 24 other people, which was kind of insane. But the hostel in itself had so many activities going on. They had so many things that you could do in the hostel, or you could book with the hostel. We also had breakfast included there, which was really ideal. But I will say, staying in a hostel with over 20 other people is a very, very humbling experience. And what was kind of insane to us was that the bunk beds were 3 stories. I've never seen that before in somebody's room, let alone in a hostel. So that was a new experience. You had to climb up 3 beds to get to your bed, which meant that late nights and early mornings were no one's favorite in that room, because realistically, I don't want to hear you waking up at 5 a.m., climbing down from your bed, creaking everywhere. And also when you come back from a night out, I really don't want to hear you climbing into bed either. You're going to be passing my bed. It's just annoying. But aside from the interesting sleeping arrangements, the activities at the hostel were really, really fun. You had an open mic night, which was actually really fun. I ended up getting up and singing, which was not something on the cards, saying that I've sang in Guatemala, which was pretty cool. There were also loads of happy hours, so drinks were like £4, which was absolutely insane. We were ordering £4 margaritas, £4 mojitos, and it was absolutely unreal. And then you could do this on the rooftop bar, sitting and admiring the entire view of volcanoes. You could see some volcanoes erupting. It was absolutely gorgeous. There was also a DJ on the rooftop, which I thought was really, really cool. And one night they even had a cinema night, which we really enjoyed. They gave us marshmallows to roast on a fire pit, and then they were handing around free popcorn whilst you watched the film. You could get unlimited popcorn, which I am an avid popcorn fan, so that was a really, really nice touch as well. But I have to take a moment for the rooftop. I know I've just mentioned it, but the rooftop was absolutely insane. You had the best view of, I think the main volcano that sort of towers over Antigua, I guess, is called Volcán de Agua, the water volcano, I think. And I think it's called that because it was essentially dormant, and so there weren't too many worries about it erupting and completely destroying the town whilst we were there. But it was such a beautiful view to see, and then being able to see other volcanoes erupting at sunset. You've got your £4 drink. It was honestly everything we could ever ask for. Now talking about the food and coffee culture in Antigua, I have to say I didn't eat too much traditional Guatemalan food, if I'm honest. There are loads of things like tostadas and fresh guacamole everywhere in Antigua, but my stomach was not well. And like I've said, fast food was kind of the only thing that would tame my stomach and make sure that I wasn't extremely ill. So I can't say I tried too much traditional food, but there are so many restaurants and I feel like there's such a variety. They even had a Taco Bell, for Christ's sake. Like if you wanted to go to a Taco Bell or you wanted to go to McDonald's, I think they also have the most beautiful Starbucks in the world in Antigua. The McDonald's was absolutely insane. But yeah, it's not something I'm necessarily, I guess, proud of. I didn't get to experience Guatemalan cuisine probably in its prime, but for me, just being really ill, I did not want to take the chance, and I was not feeling well after every meal I was eating. So any kind of normal food to me, I guess, became this sort of relief, and it felt a lot safer for me. I was trying to get better as quickly as possible, and it seemed that fast food restaurants were the only way to sort of calm my stomach down, which sounds insane. And I say this, but also our hostel only really served like avocado on toast with poached eggs for breakfast. So it wasn't even like I was able to experience anything in the hostel that was traditional Guatemalan food. I tried, I wasn't well. That's all I can say. Nonetheless, they do have such a variety. You can go traditional if you want. There's so many amazing restaurants there. But obviously, if you want some home comforts, I guess, they have them there too. Also, the coffee here is absolutely insane. Sam and I actually ended up going to this chocolate museum where they did a workshop, taught you how to make chocolate, or like I think you make your own chocolate bar or something. They were doing the classes in front of everyone, kind of front of house, which was really cool to see. But we weren't able to book onto a slot, so instead we just went and we got a coffee infused with chocolate, I guess like a mocha, and we were able to sit on their rooftop, have the best view, drinking the nicest coffee with the nicest chocolate, and it was such a nice experience. It was in the town centre, and something I definitely recommend if you can book onto one of those chocolate making classes. And I think they did coffee tastings. Don't take my word for it. For some reason, I'm remembering that. But if you are able to book onto those classes, 100% do them. In terms of culture, because I feel like I should really try and pay tribute to the culture of Guatemala, considering I couldn't eat any of their traditional food. Antigua actually has some of the most elaborate religious celebrations in the world, which we were very fortunate enough to actually be there when one of these big religious ceremonies was taking place. The city is so beautiful during Holy Week, which happens between Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. We did not realize this was going to be such a big celebration in Antigua at all, but the town itself has one of the most gorgeous churches in the town centre, and it's absolutely huge. During the week, there are these processions where people will carry these wooden floats. It's called andas, I think. And these floats depict scenes from, I think it was called The Passion of Christ. The floats are carried down the streets by participants, and everybody is wearing purple robes, and they march through town in them. And it was absolutely insane to see this in person. There's so many people that get involved, and everybody is honoring this holiday in such a nice way. Another really cool thing we saw during Holy Week was that the streets get filled with these vibrant, like handcrafted carpets almost. And they're made of coloured sawdust, I think, flowers, fruits, and other materials. They're created by local families, just people in the town itself. And then when this march happens with everyone in the purple robes, they get destroyed. And it's meant to symbolise, I think it was beauty and sacrifice, which we thought was really, really beautiful. And whilst these celebrations are obviously really beautiful and we were really, really fortunate to be able to see them in the flesh, I can't say that Sam and I were in the best of moods when this was going on, because we had tried to leave Antigua a few days prior to the big celebrations going on, but we'd been absolutely stranded. We tried to book a bus, it never came and picked us up. And so we actually ended up having to walk through these processions with our massive rucksacks, all of our stuff on our backs, because we were trying to get to a new hostel that we needed to stay in, because otherwise we were completely homeless. So I feel like in hindsight, I can appreciate them and feel like we were extremely lucky to see them and essentially join in. I mean, we got to walk with the parade, which was really lovely. But at the time, our main focus was making sure that we got to this hostel and that we were able to stay at this place for a few days, because we had to delay going to Nicaragua, which was not ideal. And another thing I really loved about seeing it was that even though you might not understand the speeches or anything that's sort of being said or sung in these ceremonies or these parades, you can still get involved and you can still walk with everybody. You can still have a nice time. Everybody understands what the holiday is. And so even if you don't speak the language, you can still have a nice time, which I really, really loved. And I obviously could not do an episode on Antigua and not talk about the Acatenango volcano climb. So let's talk about it. It's kind of a rite of passage for backpackers, I feel, in Antigua. No one is really going to go to Antigua and not do this, because it's absolutely insane. At your hostel, everyone has either done it, is just got back and is all dusty, having a shower after doing it, or they're gearing up to do it. In episode 2 of the podcast, I kind of explained a fuller extent of our story doing the Acatenango climb. So I'm not going to go into full detail. I'm going to give you the highlights and what I recommend you do or bring, any tips and tricks, because there are so many things I would have done differently if I were going to do it now. So firstly, the Acatenango climb can be booked through your hostel. We booked it through a website because we were recommended this website was really good when we were in Panajachel. But I have to say that this company does get booked up very quickly, because I think it's got one of the best base camps, or because I think it's got one of the nicest camps maybe that you stay at when you're at the top of the volcano and you can see all of the eruptions and everything. So I don't know if it necessarily matters who you go with. You're all doing the same climb. You're all going to end up at the same destination. But just a piece of advice, I would book in advance, because we thought we would be able to do it, I think 2 days before. We ended up having to do it a week later than we thought. So just something to keep in mind. If you know when you're going to be in Antigua, or if you have an idea of when you want to do it, you can just inquire and just let them know. And it was a very, very easy process. We just went on the website, said what we wanted to do, paid for it, and then turned up and it was all sorted. It cost Sam and I about £65 each, but that is including your transport, all of your meals, and of course your accommodation for the night that you're going to spend on the volcano. You can also spend, I think it was about $5 to rent walking sticks. I highly recommend this. I can't recommend this enough. I could not have done this climb without those walking sticks. Call me unfit, whatever you want, but they were so needed. And I appreciated having them so much, especially towards the end of the climb. I also want to stress that you do not need to carry very much. Sam and I ended up, I have no idea how this happened. We ended up taking our 60-litre big rucksacks with us, and we put all of our layers in and water, snacks, everything that we were going to need. We didn't fill it up to the top as though all of our stuff was still in there, but it was extremely, extremely heavy. When we got to the top of the volcano after doing our 6-hour climb, even our guide carried our bags and said, "What the hell is in here?" And he was absolutely shocked that we had climbed this volcano with this much stuff on our back. So just a tip. Just take the smallest bag you can that will fit everything you need. Don't leave things because you don't have room. You just don't need to fill a big bag. That's all I'm saying. I mean, you can get guides to carry your bags. I think they did it by weight. So it was around $20 US dollars. I guess it just depends on how you feel about carrying your bag or maybe how much it weighs. I also recommend going to the bathroom before they drive you from the hostel you're doing the climb with. Go to the bathroom at that hostel before you've even gotten in the van to drive to the starting point of this climb, because when we were there was a woman outside the bathroom asking for money, and money might not be something you remember to bring with you, even though you probably should, because if you can tip the guides that have taken you up. If you don't have cash on you, you're not going to be able to use the bathroom until about 6 hours after you've completed the climb and you're at the top of the volcano. Now for some highlights of doing this climb, because there are so many amazing points and I feel like it's something everyone should be really proud of when they do. It's really hard. Some people find it pretty easy. Some people find it extremely difficult. I would say I was kind of in the middle. I found it pretty difficult, but I was able to complete it in a good time for myself, and I was proud of what I was able to do. Considering there are so many factors working against you, it was very, very hot during the day. But one of my favorite parts of the climb was when you get to a point where the clouds become your ground. You're looking down from your view and you can only see this blanket of clouds. And it feels very, very surreal that what is now your ground is actually just clouds, and there is about 3,000 meters below that until you hit sea level. And I also have to give an honorable mention to the sunset up there, because the sunset view from Volcano Acatenango was absolutely insane and one of, if not the best sunset I've ever seen. And lastly, I have to say, despite having to wake up at 4 a.m., seeing sunrise from the very, very top, I think about 3,800 meters above sea level, seeing the sunrise from up there was absolutely stunning. And again, I don't feel like I appreciated it maybe at the time, but in hindsight, one of the most beautiful sunrises I've ever seen. I will say though that if you think you might suffer with altitude sickness or you're worried about it, you can obviously buy medicine in Antigua, the town itself, but the guides will always carry medicine with them. Also make sure you have enough water, and if anything, electrolyte drinks I would recommend. I can't say that Sam and I suffered badly with it. I just got shortness of breath the higher we got, but everybody's very patient. Our group was extremely lovely and everybody was fine with some people hanging back if they needed to, or some people going further along. You just want to take precautions and make sure that you have the right medicine for you and you're staying so hydrated. And wear walking boots. Do not attempt the climb in trainers. Please. There were people on our walk doing it in Vans trainers. Just don't do it. It's not supporting your feet or your ankles. Just don't do it. Now on to the Amelie Moran ratings for Antigua. Food and drink, I've said 7 out of 10. Various options, but like I said, I didn't try many traditional dishes. Nightlife, 8 out of 10. History and culture, 10 out of 10. So much to do, and obviously the Acatenango climb is unforgettable. Accessibility and English level, I've said 8 out of 10. Majority people do speak English. There is obviously the big backpacker community and a lot of people speak English. But I would say people who are from Antigua, who have grown up there, learning a few basic Spanish phrases would probably be quite helpful. Safety, 9 out of 10. You just want to make sure that you're booking things through your hostel. The reason we got stranded in Antigua was because we had booked a bus that wasn't through a hostel. It was just some random website, and it meant that we had to delay getting to Nicaragua by a few days. But once we'd booked a bus through a hostel, it was completely fine. It's just something to be wary of. Antigua itself is not dangerous, I would say. It feels pretty safe, but just making sure you do everything through a hostel is always going to be more ideal. Expenses, 7 out of 10. And overall, I've given Antigua 8 out of 10. I hope from this episode you've seen that Antigua, Guatemala is a must-see place, whether you're a backpacker or going for a holiday, or you're traveling through Central America. Even if you aren't looking for a flight to go tomorrow, I think we can all take a bit of Antigua's energy into our lives. Lots of adventure, beauty, and going with the flow. I will see you guys in the next episode of the Amelie Moran podcast. Make sure to subscribe and like the episode, and I will see you next time. Bye.